So, we are dealing today with the opening, and that will be the Great Reset. And the more I read about this, the more it scares me, because this has been underground for many decades, going through many different iterations, and it's like all that we've been talking about kind of feeds into this. And it's not a conspiracy. It's out in the open. And here's one of the main books by one of the main proponents, Klaus Schwab, COVID-19, The Great Reset. You'll see this cover, and you will have this PowerPoint, and you will have the link to the video as well. But it goes through all areas, and you are becoming familiar with more and more of the effects of their decisions. Even what's happened with the pandemic has been orchestrated greatly by the Great Reset. And so I want to first inform you some background and some critical evaluation, analysis, and this is part one. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be coming back with part two. And so it'll set the stage. Okay. First of all, we have to wonder, why is there so much confusion in the whole idea of reality? For example, we have a man who wants to be a woman. We have a woman who cannot say what a woman is, and yet she's now on the Supreme Court. There are reasons, of course. And we have all of our economic experts saying, well, printing more money will help solve inflation and our debt problem. Yeah, if we could, as individuals, print money and just use that, that would be nice, wouldn't it? But we know that that's not reality. But yet we have Stephanie Kelton, who's supposed to be an expert in this area, saying the United States government can never run out of money because we rule the money exchange in the world. Well, there's something that doesn't fit there. It doesn't match with reality, and that's the case with so much that's going on. And I can go on and on and on with examples. Is it nonsense? Well, I wanted to bring up a poem that is one of my wife's favorite from the past. It comes from Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. Kind of interesting. This is how it goes. "'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch." And there's a picture of the Jabberwock, according to an artist. Nonsense? Well, Lewis Carroll had a lot behind what he was saying. And really, when you go through the analysis and understand what he's doing with these different words, it makes sense. This is a translation. It was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the slithy toves, which are basically badger-like creatures, were boring holes in the side of the wet hill by spinning around, gyre and gimble. The borogoves, other animals that he's created, were miserable, and the lost rats whistled and bellowed. So he's talking about animals. It makes sense. It's not nonsense. But a lot of what we seem to face today, if we take it apart, it's just nonsense. It does not fit reality. So what do? Well, here's the mastermind, or one of the masterminds behind the whole Great Reset. This is Klaus Schwab, and he co-wrote this book, COVID-19, The Great Reset. It came out in June 2020, just a few months after we found out about this pandemic. And it's almost like it was written beforehand, knowing that it was coming. In fact, there's more to that story, as we shall see. But this is what he said. "The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world." So this group, organized and led by this man who lives in Switzerland, has a PhD and teaches at several universities, off and on. But he has put together this World Economic Forum, which runs the Davos economic forums that a lot of elites, a lot of heads of states go to and are belong to and subscribe to and promote. And it's real. It's not a conspiracy. It comes right out and says, we need to do this, and this is what's going to be done. So here's what he says. This is from the book, well, an article, Executive Chairman of the World Economic Forum, June 3rd, 2020. To achieve a better outcome, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of its societies and economics, from education to social contracts, working conditions. Every industry, from oil and gas to tech, must be transformed. Must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. Now, notice he uses the word capitalism. Glenn Beck, in his critique of this great reset in his book, reminds us, after he studied it a lot, he says, well, it's not quite socialism, and it certainly isn't the capitalism that we know. They call it stakeholder capitalism. It's kind of a combination. And it's interesting because the more I've read about it, it seems more and more similar to what China has been doing recently, coming out of their harsh communism and socialism and taking up more of the capitalism. They have become pretty adept at that. So it seems like a Western view of that particular format. And then Kate Whiting says about this, the WEF, World Economic Forum, wants to push the reset button and create well-being for people and for the earth. And there are goals that are seemingly admirable. Let's look at some of these goals that they have from a positive side, okay? They want to create utopia. Well, we've heard that before. Marx wanted to do that. Engels wanted to do that. Lenin wanted to do that. Stalin wanted to do that. Mao Zedong wanted to do that. What happened to those utopias? And now Klaus Schwab and his group, which involves a lot of Westerners, want to create a global utopia. So there is globalism in this. They want to eliminate poverty and distribute wealth so no one is in need. Oh, that's an admirable cause, isn't it? There's a lot of poverty. I did a little bit of research on some numbers, and these are from different places, averaging from about 2018, so they're a little bit outdated, but they give you an idea. The U.S. median household income is about $43,586. Median means that 50% or more, 50% or less. Okay, it gives you a better understanding than average, because when you do average, you have these billionaires that kind of take it up, and the average comes out about 70,000, and that's not accurate. So the median gives you a little bit better. U.S. median per capita, per person income. If you have 3 or 4 people at the household, it's split up. It's about $15,725. That's in the U.S. Compare it with other places. Worldwide median household is about $9,733. That's all around the world. Every person in the world split up, and the median would be about $9,000, almost $10,000. The median per capita income in the world would be about $2,920. I'll break that down a little bit better momentarily. So the worldwide average income, if you took all the rich people, all the poor people, and you averaged it out, what would people get or need per year? Everybody would get about $7,000. So child, adult, whatever. 7,000. That would be our salary, I guess. 7,000. But that's equaling it out. But we notice also 3 billion people in the world live on less than $2 a day. In fact, when you put it on daily average, the U.S. median household gets about $119 a day. Per capita income for the U.S. median would be $43 a day. Worldwide household income would be about $27 a day. And the per capita per person would be about $8 a day. So per person, you'd have about $8 a day in the world. So you buy your Starbucks and you have $4 left. Okay, but Starbucks wouldn't be $4, I guess, in that area. And then what is it with $2 a day? That's about $730 a year that they would get. That would be their income. So you have a lot of poor people, and we want to do something about that. Okay? What else do they want to do? Rebalance investment. We know that investments are way out of whack, but they've been going down, and that's not a good rebalancing. They want to harness science and technology for the good of the people. Develop AI. But what else is involved there? They want to advance the transition to net zero in the carbon footprint. In other words, that whatever carbon dioxide we put out would be equaled by what is being absorbed by the plants, because plants like carbon dioxide. They use that to make oxygen and food. So times in the past, like the medieval ages, when it was warmer than it is now, more carbon dioxide, boy, those plants just grew. They had a pretty good bounty of crops, even with all the fertilizer and everything. Anyway, another thing, stabilize climate change. Climate change is central, and we'll see why. But they want to stabilize that. They see it as the greatest danger in the whole of everything, the climate change. BJ, you look skeptical there. Create equality for all genders and races, and all, 53 genders now? Govern with fairness and kindness. That's nice. So these are positive aspects of their goals, okay? So we'll see how they are carrying them out, though. This is what they say. They put forth a lot of information on what they want to do, but I haven't seen much on what or how they're going to do it, except what we've already seen. That's quite authoritarian, as we will see. They say that it interconnects everything. And so here's one of their charts that is hard to decipher, but it's supposed to deal with the economic, the environmental, the geopolitical, the social, the technological. Everything kind of is interwoven. Here's another way of looking at it. The Great Reset is at the center of all these different things. Now I want to look at the top three main components according to Klaus Schwab and his group. So these are quotes basically from their works. 1, steer the market toward fair outcomes. That sounds pretty good. So they say governments should implement, so it's very government-centered, governments should implement long overdue reforms that promote more equitable outcomes. You'll see that word equity a lot. Number 2, ensure that investments advance shared goals such as equality and sustainability. Sustainability. In other words, build green and create incentives for industries to improve their track record on environmental, social, and governance. These ESG metrics that you may have heard about, very big. In fact, all the big corporations have to pretty much bow and kowtow to these ESG metrics. I hope that the Christian universities would not have to bow to the ESG, because there's a lot of danger in that, as we shall see. Number 3, harness the innovations of the fourth industrial revolution to support the public good, especially by addressing health and social challenges. They do say that they want to create an environment where everybody will have access to better health and insurance and so on. A lot of good ideas, but how are they going to bring them about? That's the question. Eliminate sin, there you go. But that's bringing Christianity into it. So I drew all these and I said, hey, let's put this into a nutshell. So I found the Gospel Coalition did a good job of putting it into a nutshell. They said, the Great Reset is an attempt to seize the moment of the COVID-19 crisis to build a better society where better means three things. So see it as these three things: greener, more digital, and fair. Okay, those are the three core goals of the Great Reset. So again, Klaus Schwab, the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, to reimagine, and reset our world. What I found to be interesting was that in October 2019, just 6 months before, 5 or 6 months before the COVID hit America and we found out about it, public health experts and policy leaders from Johns Hopkins University, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the World Economic Forum met to conduct a simulation of a hypothetical but scientifically plausible pandemic back in October in New York. Had a lot of prestigious people there. They created the simulation, talked about what would need to be taking place in these countries to deal with it, combat it, so on. 6 months later, voila, we get this pandemic coming out. Could there be more of a connection? It's interesting. But that's what happened 6 months before. And they were, in that simulation, they estimated that there would be 50 million who would die. 50 million. And in fact, one of their goals is to reduce population. They feel that the world is much too overpopulated, and to really take care of people properly, we need to reduce it greatly. Some have even said that the population should be only 1.5 billion. But we have almost 8 billion. That would be reducing it quite a bit. So now let's look at the critique, and some of this will be through Glenn Beck's book, The Great Reset, which I found to be very, very cogent and incisive. The analysis is great. He's got a good research team, and he combats a lot of what's being said. I also want to mention that at Erskine, I'm teaching a course starting tomorrow on all of this. It's cultural apologetics. And you all, through the church, are able to audit that. You just need to contact Erskine, and you can get in and audit that. That would give you access to all the videos, the information, and so on. So that's one thing. And I'll send you more information on the email. Okay, so let's look at the critique. Here's something from a website, Defending Gibraltar. Quote, as we will see, he, Klaus Schwab, and his accomplices are using the COVID-19 crisis to bypass democratic accountability, to override opposition, to accelerate their agenda, and to impose it on the rest of humankind against our will in what he terms a great reset. More and more people are coming out with statements like this as they realize what's going on. Glenn Beck on the goal of the Great Reset. He says, quote, the goal set is both shocking and wildly ambitious: to transform the global economy, eliminate free markets, impose a new, more easily controllable and malleable economic system, a digital system, and change the way people think about private property and corporations. The reset part of the Great Reset is an allusion to pushing the reset button on the global economy. So that's why they call it the reset. And that's what they want to do. But this is more of what we will see. They will eliminate national sovereignty and independence. They want to make a global type of government. Destroy and replace the free enterprise economic system. It will not be what we see today. It'll be very controlled. Eliminate private property. In other words, they want to say you own nothing and be happy. You'll rent everything. You won't be storing up any inheritance, so you're not going to be passing on anything to your children, So they'll be in the same boat as you will be in, and you'll need to rent and be at their whim, whatever they say, because you don't have any property to go to. Abolishing Christianity. It's one of the major goals, because Christianity gets in the way. The morals of Christianity are diabolically opposed to a lot of what's going on. A cashless society. It'll be digital. Well, it'll be easier that way, right? Yeah, and then they know exactly what you're doing and where, and they may cut it off at any time, right? Yeah. Universal income. What will that be, and who will determine who gets what? But this is what really concerns me, abolishing Christianity. And that's what we'll be doing a lot of analysis on during this semester. What's going on? How can we as Christians deal with it and reach out to those who are blinded by this great reset? Okay, here are some hidden goals. Two of the main goals. One, eliminate Christianity totally. And you'll find that the leaders are atheists, agnostic at best, but they do not promote Christianity. Christianity has no place at all in the Great Reset. And they push climate change to destroy democracy and capitalism. They want to push it to such a degree that countries will be bankrupt and they will have to fold and follow the leadership of those that will be in control. Glenn Beck says this: the Great Reset is not really about helping the poor or saving the planet. It's about making the rich richer and expanding the power of the ruling class. Goals that many elites have shared across cultures, historical eras, and geographies. Everybody wants to be a king. Everybody wants to rule the world. Look at all the empires that wanted to rule the world. It goes back all the way to the garden, doesn't it? Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. Sex, money, power. This I found to be interesting. Dictatorship of the billionariate. So you have Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, George Soros, globalism, and Bill Gates pushing the immunization, and with that, fear of the virus. So Zuckerberg, Facebook, censorship. Bezos, big business crushing the small businesses. Soros, pushing globalism. You know that he funded a lot of the district attorneys who are now very, very woke and destroying our police system. He's not an American. What business does he have in doing that? Or Gates, with his money, you know, he owns more farmland than anyone else in America, but he doesn't want to have any cows. He doesn't want to put up any methane or anything like that. So buy it all up and you can control what you want, right? That's the free system. And there's also this, oneism versus twoism. And this is what Peter Jones really pushes. Oneism says all is one. We worship and serve creation as divine. So even Pelosi was even talking about Mother Earth. Mother Earth. Why doesn't she talk about God? Doesn't she say that she's a Catholic? Why doesn't she ever mention that? Mother Earth. We don't want to hurt Mother Earth. We worship and serve creation as divine. All distinctions must be eliminated. All distinctions. All sexual distinctions, for one. Through enlightenment, we discover that we are also divine. We're all gods. Isn't that what many people are doing? When they chuck Christianity and chuck the true God, they want to be their own God. They want to make their own decisions. They want to be themselves. It's my choice. I'm God. Twoism says all is two, God and us, God and the creation, God and the rest. We worship and serve the eternal personal creator of all things. God alone is divine and is distinct from this creation, yet through his Son, Jesus, he is in loving communion with it. Night and day. They are so far apart. And our world, our nation, has been moving more and more toward this oneism, this desire to be God ourselves. And that is, as we've found, very, very dangerous. And then this is a question. Has Christianity become irrelevant to many? More and more people are apathetic toward God. We see that in the polls, in the studies. They don't think that God is relevant for their lives. They don't want God to dictate how they live. They don't want God to tell them that they can't kill their unborn children. They don't want God to tell them what they can't fulfill, or tell them that they can't fulfill their sexual lust in any way that satisfies their desires. They want to have that freedom to make that choice. They don't want God to interfere with the way they think, act, speak, and live their lives. Keep God away. They want to be their own God and live their life in a way that is most fulfilling to them. And more of our society is falling to this. A lot of our young people, we've got to reach the young people. That is so important, because this is where the influence is greatest. However, they also do not want to see that their lives are a sham. They don't face reality. Their relationships are hollow. It's all on the phone. The words that come out of their mouths and hearts are disgraceful and derogatory. I've never heard such filth coming out of people's mouths in my lifetime, and I hate that. Their sexual lusts have only brought them down to despicable, unthinkable actions, and it's only getting worse. Their minds have become illogical. They don't think rationally. They don't want rationalism. They despise the truth and wallow in relativistic lies. This is our culture to a great extent. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. Romans 1:22. Well, I want to show a comparison through Scripture. So I've chosen Galatians 5:22-26. You know what this is? Fruit of the Spirit. If you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Why? Because you're beyond that. You're above that. You're fulfilling it fully. Fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience. Think about this in regard to those who are taken up with the reset. Do they have these qualities? Well, we as Christians should. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law, and those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. That should be our attitude. Boy, what a change our world would have if people did that. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. So if we take these to heart in our lives, then we will make a difference. What about the other side? The wrath of God on the unrighteous. Romans 1:18-28. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. Is this what our culture has come to? Look at it. Who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Now, this is what has come about. I call the Great Reset really the Great Exchange. Why? 3 times in this passage. Look at what the exchange is. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Therefore, God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions, for their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. So the great exchange, that's the great reset, the great exchange. What are the consequences? Is this what we're seeing in the world? And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done, and that's what's being done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. Is this what we're seeing in the world today? They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. And I've seen that over and over and over again. Oh, yes, what you're doing is great. As evil as it is, as malicious, destructive. It is very evident that we now live in a world where many people belong in this second category. They have rejected the true God and instead worship the creature, especially themselves. They want a secular kingdom where there is no God because they want to be their own God. So that's why we need to stand up as Christians. They need to know the truth. They are not God. Here's one who stood up. Interesting, because he was at William & Mary when Ann was there. I overlapped 1 year. Lieutenant General Thomas Spohr, Director of the Center for National Defense at the Heritage Foundation, Lieutenant General. He said, traditional training and education programs used to combat racial and sex discrimination have been supplanted by programs that promote discrimination by replacing the American ideal of equality with the progressive ideal of equity, which in practice means unequal treatment based on group identity. You'll hear equity all over the place, and it is not equal at all. I had to deal with that when I was working for the Department of Education. It came out more and more.
And too many people use them interchangeably.
Equity and equality. Equity is not equal. It's very much unequal. And then you have the DEI agenda, which I know Joella would talk about more because it's rampant in schools. There are those who through our secular government are trying to supplant life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness with diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. I think of it as DIE. I wish it would die. However, the diversity is blatantly prejudiced. It's not equal. The equity is hypocritically unequal, and the demand for inclusion seeks to exclude anyone who will not accept the DEI agenda. There is obfuscation rather than clarity, hatred rather than love, anger rather than joy, evil rather than goodness, and sexual immorality rather than self-control. Romans 1:18-25. That's what comes through DEI. And then questions. How did we get to this point? Why has there been such a massive move away from a Christian worldview? Well, they're trying to cancel us because we're in the way. So what can be done to reach the woke culture that has turned away from Jesus Christ? Well, this is where we're going. These are some of the questions we're going to need to ask. Now, I'll take up part 2 in a couple of weeks. And we'll talk more about what some of the other things, go into a little bit more depth, and deal with these questions and look at what we can do as Christians, what we have to do.